And hello, we are back. This is As the Badge Turns, as always, joined by Sheriff Rich Stanek in his secret hideaway. As always, I love the background. And Sheriff Hanson, thank you so much for being our guest. Scott Nocon with Prime Corrections and Prime Health. Mm-hmm. This is the first time we've met Sheriff Hanson. I believe we'll see, maybe be able to break some bread next week in Omaha. So looking forward to that. But just kind of take us through, maybe hit on the NSA National Sheriff's Conference first, but then I'd love to hear kind of your story. So please.
Yeah, great. And ironically, even though I do have a deer in the background on my video, I think given the man cave, that the wooded location that Sheriff Stanek lives, you might actually see a real deer come crashing through
possible
his window or door here. Hopefully you can handle that, Sheriff, if it happens. So thanks again for the invitation to be on the podcast. My name is Aaron Hanson. I'm the sheriff of Douglas County, Nebraska. The county seat in Douglas County is Omaha, and so obviously we are the most heavily populated county in Nebraska. We have just over 600,000 residents in the county, and ironically, though, even though when you think Nebraska, you think ag state. Douglas County is still pretty much half urban, half rural.
Yeah.
The county's pretty much cut in half diagonally from northeast to southwest. The bottom half primarily being the city of Omaha, and the top half being unincorporated Douglas County and some smaller communities. So it's some parts of my county, it's exactly like you'd expect when you think of Nebraska, and other parts not so much.
So, again, having the conference there next week, again, this is the National Sheriff's Association. Last year, I believe we can mention other cities and states, right, Sheriff? So Oklahoma City recently, and I know it kind of shifts around. It's year after year. It's been in DC as well. That's the winter conference. I guess, the weather could be worse. It's always generally cold, and there was a lot of snow on the ground in DC this past February. But what can we expect to see in the city? And again, what prep has gone into it? And was this months in the work, years in the work? And I also know there's for any of those college baseball fans, there's a major event that is starting just the day I think the conference ends, right? So certainly a lot going on in the county. So probably not too, you guys haven't been bored lately. So what's gone into the planning, the prep with two really kind of major events going to happen back to back?
Sure. Well, obviously, number one, I think everyone's going to really enjoy themselves in Omaha. They're going to be surprised. They're going to come here, and they may be used to your typical convention city. That maybe it takes a while to walk to different restaurants or different entertainment venues in the area. In Omaha, what you see is what you get. You're going to have a lot of fun entertainment opportunities within 6 blocks of the convention center in virtually any direction. We are a river city, and Iowa is just on the eastern side of our border, and we've got a couple casinos over there. So if you like gambling, if you like good restaurants or music venues, you can hop on the walking bridge and go on over to Council Bluffs and have a good time there. But on the Nebraska side, on the Douglas County side, the Omaha side, some of the best restaurants, some of the best entertainment venues that you can find. And to your point, too, like you said, you're going to be coming right up against the calendar for the College World Series. Mm-hmm. So just outside of the convention center grounds is going to be Baseball Village. They're going to be spinning that up. A lot of fun things to do outside. And if some of our attendees do stick around for a little bit longer, they can maybe catch a game or maybe engage in a lot of the great atmosphere that occurs around the baseball stadium.
No, absolutely.
Well, Scott, I got a chance to serve on the National Sheriff's Association Board of Directors for, 9-10 years. Mm-hmm. And one of the best things about that was we got a chance to travel the country and go to places to see where sheriffing's all about, right? Sheriffing in Omaha, Nebraska is probably distinctly different than Riverside, California versus Washington, D.C. or Oakland County, Michigan, or even back here, his neighbors to the east, Hennepin County, Minnesota. Mm-hmm. Some wear big hats and boots and belt buckles. Others wear suit and ties. Some just come as they go. Others wear the uniform, but it's always fun. And, the people in the communities welcome us. And they love to see it. I mean, we had our president of the National Sheriffs come into the convention center on a horse. He was a cowboy sheriff from Wyoming, and we're like, what? You don't see that every day in Minneapolis, downtown Minneapolis.
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
Well, we're excited, especially with Nebraska Night in particular. We want to have a really unique event for our Nebraska Night event. We're going to have it on the riverfront, outside, weather permitting. We sure hope the weather cooperates. We hope it will. But everybody knows that Midwestern weather when it comes in, it comes in fast. But I think we'll have a pretty good shot of being pretty safe there. But it's going to be a lot of fun. Live bands outside, showcasing the beauty of downtown Omaha and our riverfront area. And I would not be surprised if after many of these sheriffs and staff visit our beautiful city and county, that they realize what a hidden gem Omaha, Nebraska is, and they come back with their families to recreate and have a good time in the future.
No, that's great. So how long in the planning phase has this been? And certainly with the back-to-back with the College World Series, and again, I think that, that's a well-established event that's been scheduled for years, right? So that's not like that came out of nowhere. So in all this, how much coordination have you been part of overall, just with other members of the community? And, were there certain elements, and, maybe don't divulge everything, but it's like, yeah, that's a real problem we got to solve, or overall did everything come together with a good plan? It was executed, and the fruits of your labor are going to be experienced, like you highlighted just a second ago, Sheriff, with Nebraska Night and being able to experience the city and the beauty, want to come back to it. But tons of work behind the scenes, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. I think day one, when the day after I was sworn in as sheriff, I met with the outgoing sheriff to do some housekeeping items, and he handed me the keys to the building and he handed me a few other things, and he said, "Oh, and by the way, congratulations. You're going to be the host sheriff for the National Sheriff Association Conference in 2026. So, okay, great. That's a re-election year for me.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I don't think I'll be busy with anything else that year.
No.
But, the planning started honestly that day. And so what we did was, we made a plan to bring our crucial command staff members and teammates to the various NSA conferences, whether it be in Oklahoma City or in Fort Lauderdale, so that we could integrate in with the folks that were doing the work, to make sure that we could learn from the things that worked well for them, and also kind of learn from the challenges that they faced as well. We're ready to do that for the next sheriff, for the next host sheriff in 2027, and that communication has actually already taken place.
Yeah, excellent. Did you thank him? Did you send him a gift basket when he gave you the keys and said, "Oh, by the way, you're hosting it"?
Yeah. That was a surprise, but I knew our team was up for the task. We got a great team.
No, absolutely. Well, definitely looking forward to that for sure. So again, best of luck. I'm sure it'll be an excellent event. And certainly always well attended. Lots of great sessions that are planned. So yeah, and I'm really intrigued just to see the city. I've driven through there, but I've never stayed, so I will be there a few days. So yeah, definitely looking forward to it. So if we can pivot now, so that's kind of current day. So what brought us today to this conversation, and you choosing the path of sheriff, what decisions along the way? Was there a certain pivotal moment to say, this is what I want to do, this is my calling? I think we've heard a lot on this show, and certainly conversations with Sheriff Stanek, is not everyone is fit to be sheriff. Certainly it's an elected position for the most part across all the thousands of counties, right? But in that regard, what led you down this path?
Sure. Well, I had been hired by the Omaha Police Department at age 22 in 1996. And I spent 26 and a half years with the Omaha Police Department. I retired as a sergeant there. I actually retired 2 days before I was sworn in as sheriff. I was elected in November of 2022. And, it was definitely a path that I had never envisioned for myself. I figured I would do the typical 32 year career in the Omaha Police Department and retire, maybe move out to the panhandle of the state or someplace with a beach and grow a long beard and just kind of enjoy the rest of my existence. But, ultimately I was recruited by people that care about this community, people that care about our law enforcement industry. And they asked me to consider running for sheriff knowing that a longtime sheriff, 27 years, my predecessor was retiring. And so there was going to be a vacancy. And so I decided to do it. It was an interesting path. It was a tough path, but ultimately it's worth it because the most rewarding part of being sheriff is service to your community and service to your team, showing that you can impact the quality of life for the public that you serve anywhere in the county, as well as the people who work for you. Because quite frankly, I think any sheriff would understand this. I could be the best sheriff possible. I could be a 10 out of 10. But if I don't have a team that is inspired to rally around and take ownership in the core principles that are service to the public and service to each other on the team, and ultimately give that high quality work product to the public, then the guy at the top doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. The most important players on our team is our rank and file.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Scott, I mean, Sheriff Hanson's been there now for 4 years. Not an easy position. Now, this fall, as he just mentioned, he has to run for re-election. Are there others that are stepping up to run as well? And what goes into that decision? I mean, it's a big deal because you're one of the major counties across the U.S.
Sure. Yeah, we are a major county. We're a member, proudly a major of the Major County Sheriff Association, as well as the National Sheriff Association. And yeah, there is competition in this race, and there should be, because it's an important job. I say it all the time to folks out in public and folks in peer leadership positions and folks that work for me that, the people are our bosses. They are my boss. And I think that is the beauty of the sheriff's position, in that there is no politicians between you and the people that you serve. They are your direct report bosses. And I think that's why typically sheriff's offices are going to be a little more transparent, a little more sharing, a little more interactive with the public, probably willing to take some positions that maybe some appointed law enforcement executives may be a little gun shy to take, because ultimately it's our job to be in touch with our bosses and focus on the things that they want. I'll give you an example. Here in Douglas County, we engage Zen City to do our surveying, quarterly surveying of the public, and they do a great job. By the way, if you don't work with them already, I highly recommend it. We know that one of the top concerns that our public has is crazy, reckless, deadly drivers. And I could tell you, as some guy that spent the vast majority of my career with the Omaha Police Department, chasing gang members, fugitives, cartel types, high-risk criminals, it's refreshing to know how much the public prioritizes not only those issues, but also those quality of life issues that really impact their families, their homes, their neighborhoods. Because when you leave your house in Douglas County, you got a higher likelihood, a higher statistical probability of losing your life, your spouse's life, your kid, or your pet to a crazy driver than you do an armed criminal. And so we put a priority on giving the public what they want. That's one of the many issues that we emphasize.
Can you walk us through a few initiatives you implemented to kind of address that, Sheriff?
Yeah, sure. We created the Community Action Team. Because we knew that our traditional road patrol deputies are very busy. The call loads are very high in unincorporated Douglas County, which is our primary jurisdiction for 911 calls and criminal investigative follow. And that swath of Douglas County is about 110,000 people. If that was a city, that'd be a city, the equivalent of the third biggest city in Nebraska. We would be the third biggest city if that unincorporated population were converted into a municipality. But we know that our typical road patrol deputies are busy taking 911 calls and dealing with domestic disturbances. And so it's a lot to ask those traditional road patrol deputies to switch gears and focus specifically and specialize on reckless drivers, because a lot of those reckless drivers are street racers, drunk drivers, negligent drivers, and sometimes those criminal behaviors occur in really hotspot locations where your traditional road patrol deputies might not have time to be all the time. So we knew we needed to create kind of specialist generalist position. It's called the Community Action Team.
Okay.
And they are uniformed deputies, but they wear a slightly different uniform. And their whole role is to focus exclusively on quality of life complaints, whether it's aggressive driving on a high-speed roadway, high-volume traffic roadway, a side street, or maybe even quality of life issues like potentially dangerous homeless camp that's causing problems to a business or to a neighborhood, their whole focus is to laser focus in on those quality of life concerns. It's been very, very popular across Douglas County, not only in unincorporated county, but throughout the entire county, because I've given them the authority and the direction to be responsive to anyone in the county's needs.
No, Scott, we should ask him about technology. We've had a chance to ask the other sheriffs, and technology has changed policing so much today. You can just go back and think about this. You didn't have body worn cameras and tasers and the kinds of records management systems and computer aided dispatch that you have today. And I know Douglas County, Nebraska, because you're very progressive, and I mean that in a good way, kind of sheriff that's not afraid to take a look at technology to see what's best for his or her community and then implement it to reduce crime. Tell us about some of tell us your thoughts about technology and some of the things you're doing in Douglas County.
Sure. Well, it's crucial. I mean, and it's a reality of modern day law enforcement, quite frankly. And I think that, whether it's license plate reader technology, and we use Flock here in Douglas County, they've been great. Highly recommend them. If you have any questions, feel free to get a hold of my chief deputy and I, if you'd like to learn from our experience. Or whether it's just, the companion equipment like radios, body worn camera technology, whether it's database programming that our criminal analysts require, investigators require. It's a reality of modern day policing. I can tell you that today the public would not tolerate their law enforcement professionals operating without body-worn cameras. But just because you have a body-worn camera doesn't mean you're done. You have to maintain those. Those typically have a life expectancy of maybe 5 years at most. If you're talking about the hardware, not to mention the batteries. Sometimes the batteries need to be replaced even sooner than that. Same with your radios or your servers that you use. And so every time we turn around, we realize that there's an enhanced need for ensuring that our technology infrastructure is keeping up with modern times. I just got a text message this morning on my personal phone from a scammer who's trying to lure me and I'm assuming thousands of other people into taking the bait on a scam. Those crimes are some of our fastest growing crimes. Financial crimes in Douglas County, while most of the other crimes, almost all the other crimes are dropping by double digits thanks to the hard work of our road patrol deputies and our investigators, the financial crimes, largely fueled by technology, are on the double digits in the other direction. They're on the increase. You'll never be able to keep up with the criminal element who is utilizing technology to their advantage if we do not likewise invest and maintain that same technology. One last example I'll give you. We know that we use GTAC body-worn cameras and Motorola radios. And we know within the next 2-3 years, we're going to have to replace all of them. And that's going to be a cost of anywhere from $5 to $5.5 million or more. And so we had to brace the county board for that in our budget presentation yesterday, because unfortunately, it is a cost of doing business in modern day law enforcement.
Interesting.
Absolutely. Let me go back if I can, and I'm going to weave technology back into this, but just on that separate task force, that unit that was established to be more focused. Are you seeing that either from what you've been able to do within the county, and therefore then it spreads across the state, and then is it going into other states? Like, is this a topic now that is an NSA major county level of, wow, we may need to essentially compartmentalize or operationalize this as a solution? Like, are you getting feedback? Are you getting questions? Is this something that's starting to get some momentum? Because what Sheriff Stanek said is being progressive in that thinking. Again, we've spoken with other sheriffs across the great nation. Sheriff Staley in Flagler County stands out with a number of programs that he's been able to kind of tee up and launch. This is something that I had never heard before. So thank you for taking the time to go through it. But is it, dare I say, catching fire? Are others showing interest? Is it highlighting a need that, you can't just blanket with all the same types of resources because there's too much to process? So what feedback are you getting, if any, and is this gaining momentum as a focused area for sure?
Sure. We do get positive feedback, especially on the regional level. We call it the generalist specialist business model. And we use it not only in our Uniform Services Bureau through our Community Action Team, but we also use it in our Criminal Investigations Bureau through our Special Operations Group. What we essentially did was in both teams, we created the specialized group of operators, whether it's the CAT team doing road patrol functions, specialized road patrol functions, not being tied to the radio, taking report calls on one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is our Special Operations Group. And essentially, on year one of my administration, we decided we were going to essentially get rid of all of our specialized investigative groups, narcotics, our special victims investigators, and collapse them all into one working group. Okay. And it just so happened at the time, most of them were already SWAT team members. And this also included our Fugitive Task Force group. And we created the Special Operations Group. And in order to be a member of the Special Operations Group, you have to do two things. You have to be a member of the SWAT team, and you have to be an investigator. So that gives us the best of both worlds, because that gives our traditional detectives the ability through our Special Operations Group to have that undercover group that is going out and trying to solve crime problems, either issues that they know are that they're aware of in the community. It may be a drug problem. It may be a gun problem. It may be a human trafficking problem. It may be a mailbox theft problem. It might be an auto theft spree problem. But ultimately, we want these specialist generalist working groups to know that you may show up to work the next day and you're doing something completely different than you did the day before, and that's okay. And that's worked out very, very well. And it's made them a more well-rounded group of professionals in terms of both teams, both our Community Action Team and our Special Operations Group. Because one thing I know as a 26-and-a-half-year police officer in a municipal police department, the last thing a narcotics detective wants to do is have you to tell them to do something different or investigate a property crime the next day. So we made the landscape very apparent for them. You are no longer narcotics investigators exclusively. You are no longer exclusively investigating this particular type of societal crime. You are now ready, and I need you to be ready to investigate any serious crime or support the traditional investigators for follow-up on those crimes.
That's great. No, I love that. I'll just really quick just apply that, in a, dare I say, a general office setting where I come from. The ability to have teams cross-trained gives you that flexibility just to move left to right. The greater need, and certainly the impact that you and your team is serving, is much greater than I behind a desk, but everyone has a role. But in that regard, it just allows, one, you're never bored. You have variety. I think also you can then, problem solve quicker or develop that better over time. And certainly if you're in SWAT and you're an investigator, there's already a certain skill set. But I think it's all a matter of, if you keep it fresh and you keep it moving, there's a lot of great ingenuity and innovation that can come from it.
But we also know that these type of investigations, these proactive street level undercover investigations, they oftentimes focus on the most high risk offenders. It may be the 4-time felon who is plundering construction sites across construction areas in unincorporated Douglas County. It might be the absconded parolee. That's another type of fugitive that this group will specifically go after, not only to bring them back into custody on their fugitive parole status, but also to make sure that we cut off any crime spree that they're involved in. And so having our most highly trained, most mature, most experienced operators at the tip of that spear is not only efficient in terms of our manpower usage, but also it's a liability reducer as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. Talk to us about the typical day in the life of Sheriff Aaron Hanson. Right? I mean, people think, well, it's all glamour. You get to sleep in till 9:30, 10. You get to the office, you're home by 3 p.m, and life is good. Is that true?
No, well, I usually get up around 5:30. 5 o'clock, 5:30, I catch up on the briefing emails from the night before, see what happened. Then I'll get out and I got to feed the chickens and the goats and the dogs and the geese, and that usually takes about half an hour. Take my time with that. That's kind of my focusing time. I live out in an acreage in the rural part of the county, so that's my me time. And then I'll get geared up and head into the office. I'm a working sheriff. I do have to spend, unfortunately, a lot of time in the office on strategic planning and administrative duties, but I also like to get out on the streets, in the courthouse as well, and integrate with my people and take the pulse rate, not only of the public, but also for the people that work with me on our team to serve the public.
You know, from being an Omaha city cop to transitioning to an elected sheriff of a large county, what was the one thing you did not expect? I mean, you anticipated some things, but what's the thing you did not expect about that transition?
Yeah, I think that when you're sheriff, an elected sheriff especially, you understand very quickly that your singular focus is the public, and that's who you need to serve. That's who you need to be responsive to. That's who you need to listen to. But you're also working with a variety of other stakeholders, whether it be police chiefs, other elected officials on the city, county, state, or federal level, because ultimately you have to work together as a team to accomplish your shared goals. And I think that one of the most surprising things for me, and I know talking to my peers around the nation, it's very common, is sometimes that natural competition, that natural friction that will come up from time to time from other either bureaucrats or elected officials who, quite frankly, just have a different mission than sheriffs do. They operate in a different reality than sheriffs do. And that doesn't mean that reality is wrong. It just means it's different, right? Just because sheriffs answer to the people and we need to be responsive to the people, just because sometimes that creates friction between other players in government, I think we should lean into that. That's healthy conflict. Talk it through and find ways to either enhance the positions of where those peers are operating from, or just sometimes just agree to disagree. But we've also seen big gains from that as well. We talked about the crazy drivers. Another thing that was a crime issue that we knew was emerging was we had senior citizen after senior citizen losing their retirement savings to scammers who claimed to be working for me and needed to satisfy warrants, which resulted from those folks allegedly missing jury duty. I'm sure if you're a sheriff, you're very familiar with this scam. And so we got very proactive with our partners in the city. We created a new city ordinance to put warning placards on ATM crypto kiosks. That's where most of the defrauded money was going through. And then we had to go work with Nebraska legislators to regulate these ATM crypto kiosks at the state level in order to ensure that folks would get their money back if they reported it in 30 days. And if in fact they were scammed, the crypto industry would have to pay them their money back. They're not happy to be on the receiving end of that law, but the regulation was important because people were losing their retirement savings. But the typical, maybe the typical law enforcement observer or the typical politician didn't really understand why scam prevention was a hot topic. They thought the hot topics were robberies and gang violence, and they are. They're important too. But it's those quality of life issues, similar to traffic. If you're an 83-year-old woman and you lose your retirement savings, and I've talked to them in my office, you have to go to work at a gas station on the overnight shift just to pay your property taxes. That's a problem that we have to solve, and it's a law enforcement problem that we can problem solve with our partners, and we have.
Yeah. In that, the focus, and again, scamming is definitely, I lose track. Two of them popped up with phone calls and text right now saying that, they have one more item to finish on my home loan that I previously submitted. And right when I first saw those, I was thinking, I didn't do that. Hopefully someone didn't lift my data, and the rest of these, I just kind of let the phone ring out and then they drop off. But certainly with that, there's an education part to it. So is there not necessarily, or maybe it is, so I want you to answer this, Sheriff Hanson. Is there some preventative that is more community messaging that's going out on the education to help avoid this in the future versus obviously the unfortunate, scenario where some are taken advantage of and then it's too late and then there's a recovery and they may never see those funds again. They may just fall into it. So is there a level of prevention that maybe you don't drive, but at least that you've had influence on sharing statistics, sharing experiences of this is a problem. We need to make sure that we're communicating more effectively and broadly.
Yeah, we have been a driver of the education. Okay. We're very fortunate in Douglas County and Omaha that we've got a very professional local media contingency, and they've been very helpful in helping us get the message out to educate the public about what these scams are, what they look like, and what the tragic end product can be. But unfortunately, we found frustratingly over and over that you can do as much education as you can. Unfortunately, some folks just don't pay attention and they get hooked on these scams. And so that's why we had to focus then on our relationship with the policymakers on the city and the state level to ultimately help create safety nets where the education component isn't enough.
Yeah.
But that's going to continue, because the scams are going to continue to become even more elaborate. If you find a way to prevent them from scamming folks at ATM crypto kiosks, they'll just pivot to another method to scam people. And we've seen that evolution for the last 10 years, I think, especially in our nation. We've seen it here locally. But what a lot of people don't realize, a lot of these telephonic scams that you get are coming from prisons in Georgia. That's what our intelligence and our investigations tell us, that for whatever reason, the state of Georgia is a hotspot for smuggled cell phones being smuggled into prisons. Usually it's inmates serving a life sentence or a significant sentence, and they are the ones that are committing these scams. Now, they're being orchestrated by someone. We're still trying to figure out who's orchestrating the effort. But what do? Do you indict John, who's serving a life sentence in a Georgia prison for murder, and bring him back to Nebraska to face charges? I mean, that's not very realistic. And so that's going to be the next phase of the education piece. How can we reach out to our peers in other states like Georgia and say, hey, can you please up your game? Whether you have to do cell phone dampening devices, whether you have to increase your cell searches, what can you do to prevent these scammers at your level from predating on people all across the country? The answer is there, but that'll be the next phase of the teamwork process.
That's really interesting. I'd yet to hear that about Georgia. So,
if you're in Georgia and you're hearing this, I don't mean to make you feel bad, but you got some work to do.
There's a pocket. There's a pocket where there's some, certainly not the whole state for sure.
Georgia, just rest assured, Georgia, if Nebraska inmates ever start scamming your folks, I'll do whatever I can from Nebraska to stop it within the borders of our state. I'd like that for us.
No. A Monday evening, we're having dinner. I'm having dinner both with Scott and the sheriff, and Pat Labatt's going to be the Fulton County, Georgia. I'm going to put him right between the two of you.
That's perfect. That's great.
We'll figure this out.
Yeah, that'll be great.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's one of the more interesting. I don't want to rank these yet, Sheriff Stanek. We'll save this for the year-end review, but that's one of the more interesting, and not to make light of it at all, but interesting facts I've heard out of all these conversations we've had so far. And it's just stuff that you don't think of. It's like, well, you're in prison, and I get it. For me being, not in law enforcement, and I get it. We won't even go into movies if it's a good representation or not, but, cell phones being smuggled in, be it in cakes or whatever, and just different ways, that's probably a whole other conversation just on the level of contraband that makes its way in. That would be probably mind boggling just to the normal, listener. Yeah.
Did you say cell phones smuggled in cakes?
What, right? Is that a thing?
Let me tell you. We may have a PG audience. I don't want to tell you how cell phones are smuggled into prisons. All I can tell you is I would not want to talk on one of those cell phones.
So let me restate that.
Phone would be easier.
I use cake as a replacement for anything else that we wouldn't want to say. How's that? Yeah. No. See, again,
Sheriff, do you use drones in Douglas County?
Use what?
Do you have drones in Douglas County for your responders?
We do have a drone program. It is an auxiliary program, and it's very effective. We don't yet have autonomous drones here in our agency, but the city of Omaha has implemented a more robust autonomous drone program, which will launch and head to locations of 911 calls for service. And so I do anticipate over the next few years, we'll look for funding sources to be able to repeat that in unincorporated Douglas County, because we do have a lot of areas, a lot of growing construction areas out here that I think an autonomous drone program would be very effective in integrating into.
Interesting. I mean, I'm fascinated by all the technology that's available today to help the sheriff do the job on behalf of his residents. And, like I said, every part of the country is just a little bit different. different laws, different feelings about it, but
You
interesting.
know, and I know there's a debate now saying that technology can replace law enforcement officers. I'm not a big believer in that. Do I think it could stem the need to grow law enforcement numbers faster than what we would like? Sure. I think technology can definitely be helpful in that front because it does make the job more efficient, arguably, and safer, arguably. But I don't think it's a replacement for human beings that are trained to actually respond. I mean, if it's my daughter being physically assaulted in real time, I guess I'm not unhappy that a drone is overhead memorializing the crime, but I sure as heck would much rather an actual law enforcement officer be on scene to keep her safe. So I think it's a balance. We can't become way too reliant on technology because then I think that's a slippery slope that we'll pay the price for.
So I think in that to kind of go on that lead really quick. Again, we talked a lot about technology, and I know you mentioned just for reference, Zen City, and I'm familiar with what they do, and Flock, I'm familiar with what they do, and certainly and right now in New York, I'm at a technology-based conference. So I walk the conference floor, and if there's 200 vendors, 198 of them had AI in their name. So that gets a little too much, but I look at it more, and I use AI in my kind of daily setting and within our organization. But we look at it from what can it do to help and assist versus replace. In that regard, certainly there's more involved in the sheriff setting, and you use the example of drones, but do you see where the ability to kind of help versus hinder, and then where's, again, you talked about balance, so no need to repeat all this, but is this something that you see? Not necessarily someone's pushing you to use more of the technology because there's a funding component, but in that, what is your overall belief as far as how that can help, again, screen inmates that go in via AI, maybe use some predictive analytics to kind of thwart some future issues. So in that, are these areas that you're able to go into now from an aid and assist standpoint versus, you don't need more staff, more team members because it's going to do it. I'm with you on that. I don't see that being a positive, but what can it do to support?
Sure. I think the predictive capabilities are valuable, especially for our crime analysts. And I think that is proving very beneficial across the industry, especially here locally. I also think that, when you're talking about culling data, we know how much information is on one of these devices, and to be able to cull that data or pre-sort it on the front end to make it easier for a human investigator to ultimately bear down on what matters the most. I think that's another value of AI technology. Where I get nervous, where I get worried, is to your point, when we start to move beyond supportive and start to move into replacement. At this point, I'm not sold on technology that will do the report for a law enforcement officer.
Sure.
I'm willing to learn more, but I think probably every big community has read a news story about a lawyer who has been disbarred for creating a work product that was submitted to the court that ultimately was found to be a work product not of their own, but of AI. And they have been disbarred as a result because AI, for whatever reason, doesn't get it right very often, or they make things up out of whole cloth for whatever reason. And so, ultimately, when you're working in an industry like law enforcement, ultimately it's people that are raising their right hand and testifying. That is the evidence that matters the most when it's not tangible, physical evidence. And I think we have to continue to try to support these law enforcement professionals being independent, free-thinking investigators and professionals. I don't know if I've looked at some research about young people, young students that rely on like Chat GPT or AI-driven platforms when it comes to schoolwork, and you can actually see that the usage of the lobes of their brain is different than someone who actually has to bear down and type up a paper on their own. That concerns me, not only for our young generation, but for our modern day and future law enforcement professional. I think as executives, we need to be aware of that and bulletproof against it. We cannot become overly reliant on AI. We have to see it as the effective tool that it is.
Yeah, I thank you for that. Yeah, that was very, very nicely stated. Sheriff Stanek, any additional comments or questions for Sheriff Hanson? We probably have a couple minutes, sir, and then we'll let you get back. As Rich said earlier, it's a 9 to 3 business day, so we're probably encroaching on that. I know it's not that; it's 24 hours a day. But Sheriff Stanek, anything you'd like to offer up before we?
I'm looking forward to seeing Sheriff Hanson and his agency. I think the true test is when, a number of his colleagues show up in person. As we're going to be doing. I'm coming down there on Saturday night, and I'll be in town for 4 days, 5 days. And I get to see the Douglas County Sheriff's Office in action, both protecting the residents of the county, but also, on display. And I think that's absolutely fascinating about how they go about doing that, putting it together. I know Sheriff Hanson, Aaron, personally. And I know he cares about his community and what happens each and every day with the men and women who work for him. So, it'll be fun to go to a restaurant, sit down, and, I'm the kind of guy that comes from out of state and says, well, what do you think about that sheriff anyways? And, just kind of hear it and count me in. I'll be doing that.
Yeah. Well, Scott, I want to give some props to Sheriff Stanek as a first-term sheriff, as a young sheriff, as a new sheriff. Mentors are so important. And I want to make sure that I say this not only to Rich, I'd say it if he wasn't here, but I want to say it to anybody listening to this podcast that, mentors like Sheriff Stanek, subject matter experts like Sheriff Stanek make our jobs so much easier. There's been multiple times where I've just picked up the phone to call Rich and ask him for his perspective informally, or I've had to engage him professionally through the sheriff's office. And every time the research has been spot on, the subject matter expertise has been obvious, and I cannot recommend highly enough. If you're a sheriff, you don't even have to be a first-term sheriff. If you're a third-term sheriff and you need some help on a complex project or some outside perspective, get a hold of Sheriff Rich Stanek. He's a godsend for sheriffs like me across the country.
And thank you.
That's terrific to hear. I don't think we can end on a better note. With that, again, Sheriff Hanson, thank you so much for making the time today. Really looking forward to seeing you and members of your team next week. Excited to be in Omaha for a number of days. And Sheriff Stanek, as always, looking forward to seeing you.
Bring comfortable shoes. You'll have a lot of good walking opportunities.
Comfortable shoes, yes. Sheriff Hanson, again, a pleasure to meet with you today. Look forward to seeing you next week. Sheriff Stanek, as always. And guys, until next time, this was As the Badge Turns. Please check us out on Spotify. And until next time, thank you very much.
All right. Stay safe. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Scott with Prime Health Services and Prime Corrections, and when I'm not hosting with Sheriff Stanek, I wanted to take a few moments and talk about our offsite inmate medical cost containment solution. So if you're running a jail and you have to take an inmate offsite for medical treatment of any type, have you ever paid full bill charges for that expense? Hopefully not, but if you have, let Prime help you out. So what we do, every day we receive many bills. I'll give you one example of a bill we just processed this week. This was for a county in Florida. This was for an air ambulance treatment. The total bill, $53,256. Through our scrubbing process and negotiations, we were able to reduce that bill down to $8,447.26. That is, that's a savings of 84%. So if you are looking to save on your offsite inmate medical expense, contact Prime. You can reach us via a link below. You can also send an email directly to corrections@primehealthservices.com. That's corrections@primehealthservices.com. Let Prime show you and let Prime help you save money. Thanks and have a great day.